Coming up today, 2 years after emo rapper Lil Peep's death, Everybody's Everything, a documentary about his life, premieres worldwide. After fading out of popularity in the 1980s, vinyl is finally starting to make a comeback. Activists and community members alike seek justice in a string of police-involved killings in Dallas, Texas. Yesterday marked the third day of the public impeachment hearings of President Trump. Jennifer Williams, an advisor to Vice President Mike Pence, and Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Vindman, the top Ukraine expert on the National Security Council, both listened to the entire phone call between Donald Trump and the president of Ukraine and testified about it for over 4 hours. Both witnesses said the call asking the Ukraine president to investigate Joe Biden gave them cause for concern. During last week alone, there were 3 mass shootings in California, the most recent taking place on Sunday in Fresno, when 2 shooters targeted a backyard party, killing 4 and injuring 6. It was the 370th mass shooting of 2019. The first shooting that occurred was at a high school in Santa Clarita that left 2 students dead, and the second was a family shooting in San Diego that left 5 people dead. Deforestation in the Amazon increased 30% between August 2018 and July 2019, according to a new report by Brazil's National Institute for Space Research. This is the highest rate of Amazon deforestation in over 10 years. The increase in deforestation is happening while President Jair Bolsonaro is in power. He's been criticized for not doing enough to protect the rainforest. A Hong Kong Polytechnic University has been under siege since Sunday, with anti-government protesters inside. The protesters engaged in violent battles with police, using gasoline bombs to counter the government's tear gas and water cannons. Over 1,000 people have been arrested, and nearly 200 people have been hospitalized. 100 protesters still remain inside the school, which is still surrounded by police.
November 15th marks 2 years since emo rapper Lil Peep's death, but his legacy still runs strong. The Long Island rapper blurred the lines between emo and rap music, making him a pioneer of his craft. But that's only part of his story, which was detailed in Everybody's Everything, a documentary about his life that premiered last week. We've got everything you need to know right here on the Roundup. Fans lined up at theaters around the world last week to catch a glimpse of Lil Peep's story on the big screen. The Cinema Arts Center in Huntington, New York hosted the official fan premiere, where Peep's mother, Liza Womack, made an appearance.
It's been a long journey to make this, and there were some really hardworking people who were very patient with me as I dug for every single possible thing that I could, so that there would be more of Gus in this and less of the, as they say, talking heads.
And fans dressed for the occasion all lined up in Peep merch. Some wore pink in his honor, and others even painted their nails like the late rapper.
It sold out, and we actually added a second show. And even though it's going online, I think in a week or so, people wanted to come out and see it first.
The rapper eventually became the poster child for Gen Z's angsty outcasts because of his relatable lyrics, which detail his own struggles with depression, drug use, and suicidal thoughts. The New York Times music critic, John Caramanica, even called him the new Kurt Cobain, and Vice News named him the artist of the decade. But how'd he gain such a following in the first place?
I can connect to his music on a deeper level than I've ever been able to connect to music before. It really changed what music is.
Oh, it speaks to all my emotional problems, gets me through a lot.
Our generation can relate to him because we all want to die too.
The Long Island rapper, born Gustav R., started releasing music on SoundCloud in 2014. After releasing his mixtape, Hellboy, in 2016, he started to gain a cult following on social media. And in 2017, he released his first full-length album, Come Over When You're Sober Part 1, which reached number 38 on Billboard 200. He eventually became one of the first mainstream musicians to tattoo his face, which helped him gain recognition worldwide.
I woke up with these tattoos. This says Get Cake, Die Young. I woke up with it. I had no idea I had even got it.
He played shows throughout the US and Russia, and even walked the runway during Paris Fashion Week. Eventually, he landed spreads in GQ, V Magazine, and Paper. Pete became known as an untraditional trendsetter. He was on the brink of stardom in the fashion world and on the cusp of innovation in the music industry. But on his way to the top, he died on his tour bus at the age of 21 due to an accidental drug overdose. just 3 months after the release of Come Over When You're Sober Part 1. But essential questions lingered after his death. What would happen to his unfinished and unreleased music? And who would decide the future of it?
There's a lot of music, and I'm going to be a very busy mom because I got to go around and make it happen the right way.
Womack partnered with Columbia Records to release several of Peep's posthumous projects. They also repackaged his old songs and unfinished music to release his most recent full-length album, Everybody's Everything, which came out on the same day as the documentary. The partnership sparked controversy among fans. Some said the record company is exploiting the late artist. 2 years after his death, Little Peep's story remains unfinished, but his legacy lives on. For the 631, I'm Remy Schott.
Mike Dokis still remembers the first time he listened to The Clash on vinyl with his father. It was his first record, and he's been hooked ever since.
It's so natural, I guess is a good way to put it. Because you hear all the cracks, you hear all the little dust particles that are still on the record because the needle will pick that up. And it's gets that popping noise that people love.
Now he works at WUSB radio station and is surrounded by music daily.
You just want that around you, the feeling of music surrounding you, going to concerts is the same thing. You get that music surrounding you. But now you kind of get to relax a little bit. You don't have to be moshing or something. You don't need to be doing any of that. You can just sit back on your couch, just be yeah, you know what? I dig it.
And so do music consumers. According to the Recording Industry Association of America's 2019 mid-year report, vinyl album sales grew 13% to 224 million and are expected to surpass CD sales for the first time since the 1980s. Record Stop, a record store in Patchogue, has been witness to these trends since 1974.
Around the time when digital music started getting big, a lot of the record stores closed.
But in the mid-2000s, record sales started to make a comeback.
The vinyl business has just completely skyrocketed in the last 5 years, and it's growing.
But why? For some, it's about the aesthetic. For others, it's about a feeling of nostalgia. For Robert Johnston, it's about building a collection.
We have access to all of the music now. I can listen to all of it. And so vinyl is kind of it's the greatest hits of my music taste.
Vinyl isn't cheap. Take Beyoncé's latest album, Lemonade. If you go to FYE's website, the Lemonade CD will cost you $14.44. The Lemonade vinyl will cost you almost $10 more. And if you're an Apple Music user, you can have not only Lemonade, but Beyoncé's whole discography for only $9.99 a month.
It's I listen to a record 10 times on Apple Music, and then if I like it enough, I'll buy it on vinyl to give the artist some money, because I know they don't make a lot off streaming.
So then, what draws vinyl consumers to spend the extra money? Although 80% of the music industry's revenue comes from streaming, this doesn't always benefit the artist directly. According to Digital Music News, as of 2019, Apple Music paid artists less than 3/4 of a penny per stream. That means that it would take over 2 million streams for artists just to make minimum wage. I'm heading to the Stoller Center for the Arts to speak to Norman Preslin, a professor who teaches a course on the music industry about the history and current state of vinyl sales.
As far as sales are concerned, it's the classic rock records that appear to be the biggest sellers.
Planet Rock posted a list of the top-selling vinyls for 2019. Names like Queen, Fleetwood Mac, David Bowie, Pink Floyd, Nirvana, and the Beatles dominated the charts.
So I'm not sure what that says. I'm not sure if it's just old people, like me and maybe, my generation just wanting to replenish those records because they love them, because their original vinyl got all messed up, or the cassettes broke, or the CDs, whatever it is. Or young fans that are getting into those bands, those classic rock bands.
Regardless of the demographic, vinyls are making their way back into the homes of many Americans. For the 631, I'm Nicolas Panisi.
The murders of black bodies at the hands of police officers put in place to protect them is no secret in this country. Names like Sean Bell, Danroy Henry, Mike Brown, Eric Garner, Philando Castile, and countless others are all names we've come to know. whose lifeless bodies we've seen played over and over again on news coverage until, sadly, the next name was added to the list. Most recently, Botham Jean and Tatiana Jefferson, both killed at the hands of white Dallas police officers in separate incidents, almost 1 year apart to the day, have been the latest names to take over headlines. Throughout September and October, the trial of Amber Geiger, the cop convicted of killing Botham Jean in his own home in September 2018, was polarized across newscasts and publications alike. And as the murders of Joshua Brown and Tatiana Jefferson followed in the ensuing weeks, the coverage heightened. But now that a month has passed since both of their deaths, the names have been uttered less and less, much like those executed before them. Today, we strive to shine a light on the communities and activists alike who are seeking justice for the lives attached to the names, so they too are not easily forgotten. I'm Kwari Aline, and this is Unveiled. According to a study published by the LA Times in August, police-involved killings were atop the cause of death list for young black men in America. The study notes that 1 in 1,000 black men and boys would be killed by excessive police force, a number 2.5 times greater than that of their white counterparts, which, to put in context, a black man is more likely to be shot and killed by police than securing a winning lotto ticket. Study leader Frank Edwards, a sociologist at Rutgers University, told the Times, police killings could be classified as a public health issue if these statistics persist, stating, it can have these toxic effects on communities in terms of both their physical and mental health. The optics surrounding the murders of both Joshua Brown and Tatiana Jefferson following the trial of Amber Geiger are eerily strange. Brown, a key witness in the conviction that saw Geiger sentenced to 10 years in prison for the murder of Botham Jean, was killed just days after testifying against Geiger, and what officials say was a drug deal gone bad. The story as it stands is that on October 4th, 3 individuals traveled all the way from Louisiana to Dallas to purchase large amounts of marijuana from Brown, something both the public and lawyer Lee Merritt, who represented John's family and is preparing to represent the families of both Brown and Jefferson, find hard to believe.
One, it's a fantastic story that law enforcement has concluded that someone drove from Louisiana hundreds of miles to Dallas to purchase marijuana when there's weed is almost legal in Louisiana. It's semi-legal in Louisiana. They have to pass other locations like Houston and other major cities that have large amounts of marijuana available. And so for Josh to die so close to his testimony at his trial, where the corruption within the Dallas Police Department was revealed, no one is ever practically going to rely on the conclusion of the Dallas Police Department.
Tatiana Jefferson's murder, which took place in Fort Worth, Texas, less than 15 minutes away from where both John and Brown were slain, is unique in its nature due to the fact that the officers were called to her home to conduct a sober wellness check by request of a concerned neighbor who was alarmed that her doors were left open late at night. What happened next was unfathomable. I will warn you, the images shown are graphic. As she sat with her 8-year-old nephew in his room playing a video game, Dallas-Fort Worth police officer Aaron Dean had his weapon drawn and never identified himself as a cop as he scaled the outside of her home. In the blink of an eye, 0.6 seconds to be exact, Dean had pulled the trigger, firing her a single shot through the bedroom window, striking and killing the 28-year-old Jefferson in front of her nephew.
Put your hands up! Show me your hands!
It's stories like these that Merritt reminds us we can never forget.
Aaron Dean murdered Tatiana Jefferson. He's part of a department that murdered 6 African Americans in a period of 6 months. That's in one city, and it's unheard of. That's where our dialogue needs to remain. With regard to Mr. Brown, we have to follow the leadership of his family. As I mentioned, I am investigating the case. His family has not been ready to make a public statement since his burial. And quite frankly, they've been dealing with some conflicts in terms of what they want to release and what they don't want to release. And so we're going to wait for them to lead the way.
As the family of Tatiana Jefferson mourned her death, just last week on November 9th, Marquise Jefferson, Tatiana's father, passed away at just 58 due to an apparent heart attack caused by the stress of his daughter's death. Merritt, who had built a close relationship with the older Jefferson, noted that the secondhand effects of police violence can also be fatal even for those not directly involved.
Well, it's what we see in case after case after case is individuals who survive a victim. They indelibly deal with high blood pressure, stress, tension, and we see people die more often than not in these cases.
It has the effect that it was designed to have, which is that onslaught of so many deaths done in similar fashions, under similar circumstances, oftentimes at the hands of police. And I think that is meant to sort of, you know, a shock and awe effect on the black community. And unfortunately, it's you know, it's having an effect like that.
Lesky said there's a constant state of fear blacks are in when coming into contact with law enforcement.
You feel the vulnerability, you feel the humanness of it, right? A person is just reaching for their wallet, trying to, you know, and if you think about how nervous any of us can get in any given situation, like even just at the store, or, you know, I've been at the store, I realize, oops, I forgot to go to the ATM. That's a nerve-wracking feeling. You get, you know, now, if you get that nervous in a moment like that, imagine being at the wheels. Because a lot of times people say, well, just follow the directions. Why don't you just follow the officer's directions? Well, think of a time that you yourself were nervous about anything. And it's sometimes hard to think like that at the time.
Julio Taku, a sophomore journalism student at Stony Brook, said, while he's never personally had a negative experience with the police, the secondhand effects of seeing people who look like him murdered is taxing in itself.
I'm always careful, and it's very calculated the way I act around authority, especially police officers. So if it seems like I'm being too like flighty or relaxed, I'm doing so on purpose, because I have to mentally and physically disarm them and disarm myself from whatever threat they think I can pose.
As Merritt moves forward in his quest for justice for the families of Tatiana Jefferson and Joshua Brown, he reminds us all of what we can do in our daily lives to keep the names of who have passed alive and well.
The point is always going to be to stay invested. There's a lull right now where we're not talking about it because there's very little to talk about. We're waiting to present a case to the grand jury. During that lull is when most people forget about the case, where they literally will forget a Tatiana Jefferson Day. So the idea is to continue to post, continue to hashtag, continue to say her name so that it is at the forefront of the national dialogue, because it's with darkness that these cases get smothered.